March 10, 1954, Dorothy Dandridge walked onto the stage at Hollywood's most exclusive nightclub when 2,000 white patrons fell silent. What happened next would either make her a star or destroy her career forever. But nobody in that glittering crowd knew they were witnessing the moment when America began to change. This is the Dorothy Dandridge story you've never heard. Not about her movies or her tragic end. This is about one extraordinary night when a young woman from Cleveland stood up to a system that said she didn't belong. And in doing so, opened doors that had been locked for generations. You see, the Coconut Grove wasn't just any nightclub. In 1954, it was the crown jewel of Hollywood nightlife. Frank Sinatra headlined there. Dean Martin made it his second home. Clark Gable held court at Table 7 every Friday night. If you were somebody in Hollywood, the Coconut Grove was where you proved it. But there was one unwritten rule at the Coconut Grove. It was whites only. Oh, they never said it outright. There were no signs, no official policies. But everyone understood. The Coconut Grove was where white Hollywood came to see and be seen. And that's the way it had always been. Until Dorothy Dandridge changed everything. Dorothy had just finished filming Carmen Jones, the movie that would make her the first African-American woman nominated for a Best Actress Academy Award. But in March 1954, she was still just a talented singer trying to break into the big leagues of entertainment. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Herman Hover, owner of the Coconut Grove, was on the line with Dorothy's agent. "I want to book Miss Dandridge for next Friday night," he said. "One show, 10 p.m., standard rate." Dorothy's agent, Earl Mills, was stunned. In all his years in the business, he'd never heard of the Coconut Grove booking a black performer. "Are you certain about this, Mr. Hover?" he asked. "I've seen the early footage from Carmen Jones," Hover replied. "The girl's got something special. Times are changing, and the Grove needs to change with them." But what Dorothy didn't know was that Hover was taking the biggest gamble of his career. The truth was, Herman Hover was under pressure. Television was keeping people home. The big studios were cutting back on their entertainment budgets. The Coconut Grove was struggling to fill seats, and Hover knew he needed something spectacular to draw crowds back. Dorothy Dandridge was that something. She was beautiful, talented, and after Carmen Jones, she was generating buzz throughout Hollywood. Booking her wasn't just about breaking barriers. It was about survival. But Hover also knew he was playing with fire. His regular clientele, the studio executives, the oil barons, the old Hollywood establishment, might not be ready for this kind of change. He could lose everything. The morning of the show, Hover called Dorothy personally. His voice was tense, careful. "Miss Dandridge," he said, "I want you to understand the situation tonight. This is unprecedented. Some folks might not be ready for what we're doing. If there's any trouble, any disruption, you just finish your set and leave quietly. No confrontations, no speeches. Just sing and go." Dorothy listened to every word. Then she asked a question that would define the entire evening. "Mr. Hover, are you asking me to be less than who I am?" That question changed everything. Hover was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, "No, Miss Dandridge. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are. That's why I hired you." Dorothy arrived at the Coconut Grove at 8 p.m., 2 hours before showtime. She used the back entrance, not because she was told to, but because she didn't want to create a disturbance before her performance. She had one chance to get this right. In her small dressing room backstage, Dorothy looked at herself in the mirror. She was wearing a stunning black sequin gown that caught the light like liquid mercury. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless, but her hands were shaking. She thought about her grandmother, who had been born into slavery in Kentucky. She thought about her mother, who had cleaned white folks' houses to pay for Dorothy's singing lessons. And she thought about all the little girls who looked like her and dreamed of standing on stages like this. "This isn't just about me," she whispered to her reflection. "This is bigger than me." At 9:45 p.m., Dorothy Dandridge faced her moment of truth. The Coconut Grove was packed. Every table filled, every seat taken. The who's who of Hollywood had turned out, some out of curiosity, others out of genuine anticipation. Clark Gable was there, as was Humphrey Bogart. Even Louis B. Mayer, the powerful head of MGM, had reserved his usual table, but Dorothy could sense the tension in the room. Conversations were more subdued than usual. People kept glancing toward the stage, then back to their companions, as if they weren't quite sure what they were about to witness. Herman Hover took the stage to introduce her. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "the Coconut Grove is proud to present a remarkable young talent, a star of the upcoming film, Carmen Jones, Miss Dorothy Dandridge." The applause was polite, reserved. Not hostile, but not welcoming either. It was the sound of people withholding judgment. Dorothy walked onto that stage with her head high and her shoulders back. The spotlight hit her, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. What happened next would be talked about in Hollywood for decades. Dorothy approached the microphone and looked out at the sea of faces staring back at her. White faces, all of them. Wealthy, powerful people who held the keys to her dreams in their hands. "Good evening," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I'm honored to be here at the Coconut Grove tonight. This is a first for me, and I believe it's a first for you as well. So let's make it memorable." She nodded to the band, and the opening notes of "What is this thing called love?" filled the air. Dorothy began to sing. From the very first note, something magical happened. Dorothy's voice was pure velvet, rich and warm, and absolutely captivating. But it was more than just her voice. It was her presence, her dignity, her undeniable star quality that filled every corner of that room. But not everyone was ready to accept what they were seeing. About halfway through her second song, "Stormy Weather," Dorothy noticed some commotion near the back of the room. A group of patrons, older men in expensive suits, had gotten up from their table and were heading for the exit. As they passed other tables, Dorothy could see them stopping to speak to people, gesturing toward the stage. Some of the people they spoke to also got up to leave. Dorothy never missed a note. She kept singing, kept performing, but inside, her heart was breaking. This was what she had feared. This was the rejection she had prepared herself for, but hoped would never come. Then something extraordinary happened. Clark Gable, sitting at his regular table near the stage, stood up. Not to leave, to applaud. He began clapping enthusiastically, his eyes fixed on Dorothy with obvious admiration. Humphrey Bogart followed suit, then director John Huston, then producer David O. Selznick. One by one, the real power players in Hollywood were standing and applauding. The message was clear. Dorothy Dandridge belonged on that stage. But Dorothy wasn't finished surprising people. As she moved into her third song, "I Get a Kick Out of You," she did something unprecedented. She stepped down from the stage and began moving through the audience, singing directly to the patrons at their tables. This was the moment that broke all the rules. In 1954, there were unwritten codes about how black performers interacted with white audiences. They stayed on stage. They didn't mingle. They certainly didn't move through the crowd, making eye contact, treating the audience as equals. But Dorothy Dandridge wasn't following anybody's rules but her own. She stopped at Clark Gable's table and sang directly to him. The movie star beamed like a schoolboy. She paused at Louis B. Mayer's table, and the powerful studio head found himself charmed, despite himself. But the most important moment came When Dorothy reached table 12. At table 12 sat Walter White, head of the NAACP, and his wife. They had come to the show not just as entertainment, but as observers. They were there to witness this historic moment, and if necessary, to document any discrimination or mistreatment. When Dorothy stopped at their table, their eyes met, and in that instant, a silent understanding passed between them. Dorothy wasn't just performing. She was making a statement. She was showing America that talent, dignity, and grace knew no color. Walter White later wrote in his autobiography, "I watched Dorothy Dandridge that night and saw the future of America. Not the America that was, but the America that could be." She didn't demand respect, she commanded it. She didn't ask for acceptance, she earned it. As Dorothy returned to the stage for her final song, the entire dynamic of the room had shifted. Where there had been tension and uncertainty, there was now appreciation and admiration. Where there had been polite but distant applause, there was now genuine enthusiasm. Dorothy chose "God Bless America" for her closing number. It was a bold choice, a patriotic song that made a statement about belonging, about claiming her place in the country she loved, despite the obstacles she faced. As her voice soared on the final notes, the entire Coconut Grove rose to their feet in thunderous applause. It wasn't the polite recognition she had received at the beginning of her set. This was genuine appreciation for exceptional artistry. But the real magic happened after Dorothy left the stage. Herman Hover rushed backstage, his face flushed with excitement. "Dorothy," he said, that was extraordinary. The phones are already ringing. People want to book you, want to work with you. You've opened doors tonight that have been closed for decades." But Dorothy's response revealed the true measure of her character. "Mr. Hover," she said, "I didn't do this for me. I did this for every girl who looks like me and dreams of standing on a stage like this. I did this so that someday this won't be remarkable anymore. It will just be normal." The impact of Dorothy's performance at the Coconut Grove went far beyond that single night. Within a week, Dorothy received offers from 3 major record labels. 2 television variety shows wanted to book her as a guest. Most importantly, the buzz from her Coconut Grove performance helped generate Oscar nomination momentum for Carmen Jones. But perhaps most significantly, Dorothy's success opened the doors of the Coconut Grove and other exclusive venues to other African American performers. Within a year, Nat King Cole, Sammy Davis Jr., and Lena Horne were all headlining at venues that had previously been closed to them. The real test of Dorothy's impact came 6 months later. In September 1954, Dorothy was invited back to headline at the Coconut Grove for a full week-long engagement. This time, there was no uncertainty, no tension. She was simply a star performer at Hollywood's premier nightclub. Clark Gable, who had become a genuine admirer and friend, attended her opening night. After her performance, he was asked by a reporter what he thought about Dorothy's success. "What I think," Gable said, "is that talent and class will always find their way to the top. Miss Dandridge has both in abundance. The only surprise is that it took Hollywood this long to recognize it." But Dorothy's triumph came with a price that few people understood. The pressure of being the first was enormous. Every performance had to be perfect. Every public appearance was scrutinized. Dorothy knew that any misstep wouldn't just reflect on her. It would reflect on every African American performer who might follow in her footsteps. In a private interview years later, Dorothy spoke candidly about this burden. People saw the glamour, the success, the breaking of barriers. What they didn't see was the loneliness. "I couldn't just be a performer. I had to be a symbol, a representative, a pioneer. That's an honor, but it's also a weight that never leaves your shoulders." Dorothy's story took a tragic turn that America wasn't ready for. Despite her groundbreaking success, Dorothy still faced systemic racism that limited her opportunities. She couldn't get the leading lady roles that her talent deserved because Hollywood wasn't ready for an African-American woman to be a romantic lead. Opposite white actors. She struggled with personal relationships, financial difficulties, and the constant pressure of being a trailblazer in an industry that was still fundamentally hostile to people who looked like her. On September 8, 1965, Dorothy Dandridge was found dead in her Hollywood apartment at the age of 42. The official cause was an accidental overdose of antidepressants, but many who knew her believed she had simply been worn down by the struggle. But Dorothy's legacy lived on in ways she never could have imagined. At her funeral, Hattie McDaniel, the first African-American to win an Academy Award, delivered a eulogy that captured Dorothy's true significance. Dorothy didn't just open doors, she said. She walked through them with such grace and dignity that no one could ever close them again. The little girl who had watched Dorothy perform at the Coconut Grove in 1954 grew up to become Diana Ross, the young woman who saw Dorothy's Oscar nomination. Coverage on television was Diane Carroll, who would become the first African-American woman to star in her own television series. And here's what Dorothy Dandridge taught America about courage and dignity. Real change doesn't come from grand gestures or dramatic confrontations. It comes from talented, determined individuals who simply refuse to accept limitations. Dorothy didn't demand to perform at the Coconut Grove. She earned that right. She didn't insist on respect. She commanded it through her artistry and professionalism. In 2019, nearly 65 years after that historic night at the Coconut Grove, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences unveiled a new exhibit in their museum. The centerpiece was Dorothy Dandridge's dress from her Oscar nomination night, displayed alongside a photograph from her Coconut Grove performance. The plaque beside the display reads, "Dorothy Dandridge, Pioneer, Artist, American. She showed us that talent knows no boundaries and that dignity opens doors that prejudice tries to keep closed." Today, when we watch performers like Halle Berry, Lupita Nyong'o, or Viola Davis grace the stages and screens of America, we're seeing the fulfillment of Dorothy Dandridge's dream. They stand on stages that Dorothy made possible. They accept awards that Dorothy paved the way for. They perform for audiences that Dorothy taught to see beyond color to the artistry underneath. But perhaps Dorothy's greatest legacy isn't in the barriers she broke or the doors she opened. It's in the lesson she taught about what real strength looks like. Real strength isn't about being loud or confrontational. Real strength is about standing with dignity in the face of adversity. It's about performing your best when people expect your worst. It's about carrying yourself with such grace and professionalism that prejudice simply can't find a foothold. Dorothy Dandridge showed America what the future could look like. Future where talent mattered more than color, where artistry transcended prejudice, where a young woman from Cleveland could stand on the stage of Hollywood's most exclusive nightclub and command respect through nothing more than her God-given gifts and her unshakable dignity. That night at the Coconut Grove wasn't just about one performance by one talented woman. It was about America beginning to live up to its highest ideals. It was about the promise that, in this country, if you have enough talent and enough courage, no door has to stay closed forever. And every time we see an African-American performer take the stage at a major venue, every time we see diversity celebrated in entertainment, every time we see talent recognized regardless of race, we're seeing Dorothy Dandridge's victory continue to unfold. She didn't just break barriers. She showed us how to tear them down with grace. What do you think? Does Dorothy Dandridge's story of quiet courage and persistent dignity remind you of the changes you've witnessed in your own lifetime? Share your memories of how America has changed and the pioneers who made that change possible. If Dorothy's story moved you, please subscribe for more tales of the brave Americans who changed our country for the better. And share this with someone who needs to be reminded that real change comes not from anger, but from excellence that cannot be denied. Because Dorothy Dandridge proved that sometimes the most powerful way to fight prejudice is simply to be undeniably, unshakably magnificent.